Can you hear me now? It's all right. I didn't say anything particularly clever anyway. It was all just blah, blah. Welcome. Can you hear me now? Now, yes. Fantastic. Well, hi. It is I, Madam Onça, and I'm delighted to be here with you to talk to you about some tarot stuff. A little bit less and less formal, shall we say? uh, it's been a beachy yard bikini type of day, so I decided to keep that rolling for tonight. So what we're going to be doing this evening here in the old Tarot Talk for Tower Times is last week we began to explore the major arcana. Hi, Sally. If you're just joining us now, in the previous months during the pandemic, we had been walking our way through the meanings of the cards. If you have a tarot deck there, you may want to pull out some of the, hey, quick hello from Ecuador. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Be safe travel, Reverend Tommy. And hello, BLC Blonde. Oh, everybody wish Tommy the safest of travel. We have missed him helping to keep things running smoothly here. How very kind of him to pop in. He is in Ecuador. He's our usual Twitch moderator. But of course, in this show, you are left to my devices right now as far as my capacity to manage tech as well as information. So what we have been doing, we've been walking our way through the meanings of the cards. I believe that we got through the aces and tens of all four of the suits of the minor arcana. Feel free to correct me if that's not true, because I did have to take a few weeks off for family affairs, this being a big season for kids, graduations, that kind of thing, spontaneous root canals like we had yesterday. There's always something going on. But I believe that we have progressed through the minors. We have jumped into the majors. We'll go back and do the people cards, the court cards later. But so last week we did, I believe we did the Fool rather, through the Strength card. If you were here last time around and that's not correct, feel free to let me know. But that's what I think I remember. So today we are going to be picking up there and starting with number 9, the Hermit. So if you have a deck of tarot cards there, I know some of you are eagerly awaiting them in the mail. But if you've got one, you may want to pull out your major arcana. Those are the cards that sort of get they get their name in lights when they show up in the movies. They tend to be sensationalized, being sort of exciting. That's, the Lover's card, the Death card, and so forth. So if you have a deck with you, I invite you to get your majors out now. I will, of course, share my cards with you as well. We are going to be jumping in with the Hermit card any minute now. And of course, once we get through the infotainment part, where I'm happy to just share something with you about my cards in general, how a person might use tarot cards. Then we also, I like to read cards for folks as well. So let's see what we've got. If you've got your cards, we're going to be starting with what is typically number 9, and working our way up, certainly through the Devil, possibly to the Tower, depending how we're doing on time. So for anybody who doesn't know, we have had documentation of the tarot, the existence of the tarot, stretching all the way back to its original form, the Tarocchi, or in an earlier form, Tarocchi in Italy, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. There are folks who would like to debate that, the tarot has its origins in Atlantis and, ancient Egypt. There are scholars who can say that it has its roots certainly extending back the Silk Road. I am not able to confirm nor deny anything about Atlantis. I can tell you that I tend to lean into what we have documentation for. If you would like to learn about the documentable history of the tarot from an expert, I invite you to look up the work of Mary K. Greer, Greer. She is the consummate tarot academic, and was very kind to me early on in my tarot journey, and has written so many of the best books. So she can talk to you all about it. There's a lot of very fascinating history of women in the occult as well, that she has great bibliographical information about that. So if you're into that sort of thing, Mary K. Greer, she's always in the top of my list. Another author I'm happy to direct you to, of course, is Rachel Pollack with Two L's. Another incredible author, feminist. She is a person of Jewish heritage who brings a lot of her cultural understanding to her reading of the cards, and has probably written books about the tarot that are as, would stack as high as me. So both of those women have a lot of insight. and if you want sort of a fun thing that you can listen to while you're multitasking, there is a charming YouTuber and blogger and now written author named Kelly Ann Maddox with an X. She has a free online sort of all about tarot on YouTube. I'm happy to point you to. I have listened to her course myself while I was cleaning and packing just to see what she could remind me of or teach me that I didn't know. You can always learn more. So we find ourselves now here in the present, and we in a world of many different kinds of decks. And we have tarot decks and we have oracle decks. There's also Lenormand and lots of other systems of cartomancy. But a traditional tarot deck has 78 cards. It is typically divided into 5 different suits, which are something like wands, cups, swords, discs, pentacles, or stones, and then the major arcana. The major arcana is what we are working with today. So if there's any history that I've missed that you would like, feel free to, pull my ear. I'm glad to share it with you. Otherwise, my dears, it is hermit time. Now here we see, look at these nice matte cards. They're not glaring too badly in the camera. Here we see the hermit card, usually number 9, and often depicting a sort of a benevolent but mysterious figure, a hooded figure somewhere up in the mountain. There's typically a lantern. Often the hermit has their back to you, holding the lantern up. I wanted to personalize this and turn it towards us. Also, often the hermit card is depicted as having a long beard, sort of hearkening, to the old hermits and sages that we hear. So the anchorites, that's what I'm thinking of, that we so often hear mentioned in history. But I wanted to make them more gender ambiguous because there have, of course, been sages of all the genders over the ages. When the hermit card comes up, and again, I wanted to make them a little more accessible and turning towards the viewer as compared to turning away. The hermit card has several layers of meaning. When it comes up in a reading, it can literally mean, girl, you need to take some time for yourself. So it can speak to a need for some personal time, some quiet time. Just hermit yourself away, even if you are in a crowded apartment, if you are in a crowded department. It's good to try to make a little personal space. Maybe it's just doing your breathing meditation in the shower, if assuming that might be time that you have to yourself. The hermit says, take some personal time. On a broader level, when the hermit card comes up, it suggests that you are moving into a period of seeking. You might say light seeking, you might say deepening of information, that you're moving into a period of seeking, questing, and that you will either need to be self-teaching and self-directed during this time. So this is about your personal praxis, whether that is, meditation or, book study or whatever that might look like for you. Or it may also mean like one-on-one training, mentorship. So it, as compared to going for, the rather than going to the community shop to be in a class in that format, that's more of a Hierophant situation. This is about finding like a one-on-one mentor, be a matter of like personal direction and guidance, or literally actually saying, I need to figure out what's going on with my yoga situation. I'm going to go work one-on-one with someone. I need to learn more about the fine art of slumping glass. And I'm going to learn that at this point. I'll learn better from another person who stands in my shoes rather than just, Googling instructables. So the hermit can speak to personal time, just in the moment, catch a breath, pour yourself a glass of tea, have a Chardonnay, take a walk on your own. But it can also speak to a particular approach to the deepening of your knowledge as you are on a quest. Also, the hermit typically is depicted holding a lantern, and that speaks to this notion that not only you may need a guide moving forward, but it also suggests that in doing so, in prioritizing your own learning, your own quest, undertaking the adventure of knowing yourself better, or mastering your craft, you will in turn be able to turn to others and invite them on the path. This card is essentially the enemy of gatekeeping. It suggests making a way, offering guidance, and in turn being guided. So there's the Hermit. Very nice little card. Then we come to the Wheel of Fortune. Now, I hope I'm not telling tales out of school, but as you may know, my partner is a professional jester and juggler, and I didn't really understand prior to our partnership the role that the Wheel of Fortune has for people in that field. In some of these depictions of this card, sometimes it's just an object. And I'd like to point out it is, in some ways, the Wheel of Fortune is the only thing that gets depicted in the deck. The Empress is a person. The lovers are people. The Fool is a person. The Tower is a thing, but it is a giant edifice. The Wheel of Fortune is the only sort of abstracted object that gets its own card. And that may be because in some of the old decks, it is actually the card of Donna Fortuna, who is a deity. She's a goddess or a demigoddess, depending on when and where you are in history. She's Lady Luck, who of course is very important to folks who have risky jobs. She's big for gamblers, also big for jugglers and jesters. So I did not know that until it became relevant to my immediate interests. In fact, there is a hello, hi, there he is now. Thank you so much. Ask and you shall receive. Oh, it is delicious. Thank you. Donna Fortuna. So she is the Lady Luck. Hello, Screaming Dragon. Welcome, welcome. We were just talking about the Wheel of Fortune. So big for gamblers, big for jugglers, big for jesters, because there's that element of risk. There is that element of wager big, win all, lose all, when you eat fire for a living or things like that. So I have while this is the image that I have of it now, you can see the wheel itself. I have another painting upstairs. I wish I could bring you down and show you. That is the Wheel of Fortune, that is really depicted as more, it's really Lady Luck holding the wheel. And often Donna Fortuna is depicted holding long scarves for some reason. I don't know the symbolic meaning of that. If anybody has any insight, by all means, point me in that direction. I would love to know why Donna Fortuna is often holding long scarves. Maybe, I don't know. I'm like grappling hook, making your own destiny. I don't know. In my image, we see here the wheel turns around and we see, sort of strapped to the wheel. And this is a relatively traditional imagery. There is a child, there is a grown woman, there is a crone, and they're all sort of they're moving through the cycles of life. The baby can see the sort of cosmos. Everybody else is sort of blindfolded and in the experience. When the Wheel of Fortune comes up, once again, we have multiple sets of meanings. It is a time when everything is flux. Sometimes when it comes up, I almost interpret it as like the magic 8 ball. It is the ask again later, as in there literally isn't enough information. Enough things are not fallen into place in your environment for the cards to help you make a judgment call, right? The cards are only ever offering you probability based on your personality, your choices, your circumstances, right? Nothing is predetermined. So sometimes the cards are like, I don't know, we have to wait and see more how the chips fall. Often when this card comes up, however, it is pointing out that life is cyclic. The winter moves into the summer moves into the winter. If you are on top now, the Wheel of Fortune suggests that you may experience a change of fortune. Vice versa, if you are, if you've been in a COVID slump for a long time and you get the Wheel of Fortune, it suggests that you may be standing on the brink of some positive change. So this card invites you to evaluate the riskiness of the choices you're making and decide when to be brave and when to bet high. So that's our Wheel of Fortune. Then we come to, there's a number of cards, Justice, Judgment, Temperance. They have a nickname, which eludes me right now. I want to say it's They're like the graces or the virtues or the values. They are the cards that speak to the development of, I'm almost going to say, moral qualities, uh, which is to say learned ethics. That's a better way to put it. So here we see justice. As justice is so often depicted, we see justice as blind. She is standing, in this case, in the center of the, what is the word I'm looking for? Symbol of atoms. And we see the scales, we see the book ablaze, we see the light, the heavens above. The justice card comes up to suggest. Number one, I always ask if somebody has some sort of pending legal matter. Is there are you dealing with a custody thing? Are you dealing with a green card issue? Are you dealing with an issue with a landlord? When the justice card comes up, historically, it suggests that you will be experiencing resolution soon, and typically positive resolution. So there's that. It's just kind of a cute thing that justice card can bring. Often when it comes up, I find that it is asking us to make a deep. Tarot cards always give you homework. They're not just telling you, tall, dark, handsome stranger, do or don't get into the blue van with the candy. They are always asking you to do deep personal work, right? That's what we're here to do, is, have the fun we can, but also learn all the things we can. So when the Justice card comes up, it is often saying, what in your situation, whatever you're reading the cards about, what is the difference between what is legal and what is ethical? As we know, often those things are not the same at all. Plenty of heinous miscarriage of true justice has been executed within the bounds of the law. So justice asks you to look at a situation and say, I know. Do I know what's legal? Do I know what's ethical? It's not telling you which one to go with, but it is asking you to make sure that you know the difference. I would say on a deep level, it's almost asking you to not be the guy who just says, I do what I'm told, I follow orders. You may choose to follow those orders, but this card asks you to do the deep thinking to understand what you're doing and why. So the Justice card basically is like, what's your real motivation? What are the real likely consequences? And you can, of course, dive deep into all that as above, so below symbolism that is here implied. There's flames and vines, so much about the natural world. There's the scale, which suggests that weighing of what we weigh in our conscience. And it also harkens to the judgment card, as we will see the next time we get together. There is the book, but the book is on fire. There's a lot going on. So, justice. Hi. It's funny. I can see people having conversations with each other, like all the Nat 21 stuff is like, I'm Nat 21 right now, but there's also somebody else who's Nat 21 in here. Anyway, now we come to the Hanged Man. And if you have questions, feel free to pop them up, because there's a lot of cards. If you already have a copy of my deck, you will recognize that this is a little bit different. This is, I made some adjustments for this second iteration of the second edition. But here we see the classic. Here is the figure. They have climbed Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life. They are hanging, not by their neck. This is not an act of violence, but rather this is an active vision quest. They're hanging by their ankle over the pool, engaged in shamanic feats of strength and endurance. Why? Because that's how humans got writing. It was all the result of a vision quest in order to get the runes so that humans and our consciousness would be elevated. That's the myth I chose to use. But, you can, in this card, but you can see the dying and reborn god appears in different forms throughout lots of cultures and through lots of tarot decks. It is, Osiris, dying and being resurrected. It is the dying Christ. It is the John Barleycorn. We see here in the Hanged Man this notion of personal sacrifice, or sacrifice of the person for the long-term gain. We see your hangman reminds me of a ballet dancer right? Well, thank you very much. And there's something very traditional about that that sort of crossed leg too, which if anybody here watched the very charming movie The Ninth Gate, you may recognize that there. Um, incidentally, this particular hangman is actually a picture of my baby daddy. So, what does the hangman mean? It means that you may, in order to go to grad school, you may be living on ramen for a while. It's about short term sacrifice for long term gain. It is about if you would like to get a puppy, you can expect that they will, you may be glad to make the sacrifices, but they will keep you up and they will chew up every expensive pair of boots you have. It's about sacrifice now for the long term picture. So, as many of these have sort of there's a, I want to say there's a like a flash meaning, like there's a first layer of meaning. But the hanged man, when the first layer of meaning is you're literally all hung up, you can't make any headway on something because again, you're waiting for more information, you're waiting for the economy to start, you're waiting for your vaccine to kick in, you're waiting for the paperwork to come in the mail. You're all hung up. Suspended animation. So that's your first layer. That second layer is that notion of the long-term effort. Here it is. It's the vision quest for the goal. It is the sustained effort for the big picture. On another level, it is also always, this card is always asking you to question whether you are motivated by martyrdom because martyrdom is required, or if you are a habitual martyrer, if you are one of those people who has learned to sacrifice everything and then hold other people accountable, even if they didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself. So essentially, codependence or habitual martyrdom. So the hanged man has a lot to say to us on different levels about that. Questions, comments, concerns, by all means, pop them in here. Oh, thank you. This moderator also brought me a drink. Bless you. It's nice sitting here in Awesome Town past all of these lights. I can also see the twilight beginning to settle over the yard and the birds climbing into their perches and everything. So as much as I am all bright orange and beachy, I'm looking out into a world that is increasingly blue. Now, jumping from the Hanged Man 12, we're going to number 13, the Death card. This one, of course, we see very often in the movies. And you have perhaps heard us talk on this channel about this card before. I don't have a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck with me at the moment, but the Death card typically depicts, the tarot has its, at least in the last 500 years, its immediate roots are European, so it tends to have sort of European Catholic and Protestant sort of imagery. So we usually see a skeleton, in the Grim Reaper mode. Perhaps they are in armor, perhaps they are in the long cloak, perhaps they are armed with a sword or a scythe, and they are usually mowing people down. It is that kind of a death image. Usually we see kings and princes and popes, young and old, falling at the feet of death. Yeah, that could be a little scary. So when the Death card comes up, interestingly, what it is supposed to represent in the tarot is transformation, the radical, definitive, and often painful end of a situation. So we can see that in that classical image. Here comes the Grim Reaper knocking everybody down, irrespective of their status. So the imagery as it evolved over centuries, the whole emphasis on crowns and papal mitres and everything was to suggest that no one is above death. That sort of radical transformation, be it on the physical plane or change of circumstances or rise and fall of a job, a project, a relationship. There are all the little deaths. They come to everyone, irrespective of status. However, I was not satisfied with that imagery for a wide variety of reasons, and I made this one instead, which is entirely true, I like to think, to the spirit of the meaning of the Death card, but also allows us to put our focus on the quality of transformation and uplift. Face it, if you're getting this card, you're already well aware of the shitty and painful parts that the Death card speaks of. That is the death of the relationship, the loss of the job, the the emotional desolation of uh, being lost, bereft, and so forth. I wanted the card to focus a little bit more on that, what I call the compost principle, which is there can be no growth, but that there is a medium for it to grow in. So, as your situation, when this card comes up, let's say hypothetically it's the death of a relationship, when this card comes up and your relationship, has bottomed out, exploded, and is in a moldering pile of ruins, you may be filled with grief, but that is literally the medium out of which your new life and opportunities will grow. So, this card is intended to, we see the loss, all the figures are grieving, mourning, raging. They're in all of the various stages of upset. We see the figure, which, as you may have heard me say before, this is an image of a friend of mine who I lost many years ago. That was the first real death I experienced. And then we see really what everyone is missing is the sort of rising of the phoenix, of that, the releasing of the raw potential. So, yeah, let me see. Onça knows what I'm going to say. This is my favorite death card. And aw, thanks, Mr. Current Moderator. Yes, I was actually working on this card when that fella and I met. Thank you very much, Fantasy Palette. And thank you, Screaming Dragon, as well. Yeah, I feel that it is very important because, again, when that card comes up, you're plenty in touch with the pain part. What you often need to be reminded of is that, out of the compost grows the future. Now we move from the death card. I'm going to dabble in talking about the science of numbers in tarot for a second too, which I don't lean into that a whole lot. I am not super mathy, so I don't tend to think in those terms. But 13, very dramatic. If you know your history, you know that the reason that 13 has its place in history is because of the Knights Templar, and the night that it was Friday the 13th was the day when they all were put under arrest by the Catholic Church, tried, had all their money taken, and then were all killed. So 13, an unlucky number. We have a lot of cultural associations with it still. However, if you mush them together, you do get 1 + 3 is 4, which is a stable, square, boxy number. We come back in the tarot to that 4 being the stable table. And so the death card, even though it speaks to transformation, within it, again, there's that sort of kernel of like, but don't worry, it's going to even out and things will be stable again. Let me see. What do we see here? Favorite part of the death card, even death itself doesn't see the phoenix. Yeah, he's got a hard job, or they do. I suppose they're ungendered. Yeah, the death has a rough job here. They only get to see the hard part. Thank you. But now we come to the temperance card. And so with temperance, again, many of the major cards have they have their it's like a snap judgment or a snap meaning where you go, oh, hanged man, all hung up, wheel of fortune, don't really know how things are going. The hermit, girl, you need some time to yourself. There's that surface meaning, which with taken with the other layers means more. So temperance, clearly you need to find a more livable mix, lest you burn out, right? That's our first notion. And here we see the very big angel. And they are making this sort of almost like magma umbilical brew between their vessels. And I may have shared this story with some of you before. I don't know. My original tarot mentor was an amazing, she's alive, she is an amazing painter and person who I had the pleasure of working with back in the day, named Kate Nordstrom. She's sort of I want to say like a surrealist painter. Her work sort of reminds me of Chagall or that sort of thing. And she's a true intuitive, like a psychic, as well as just a very patient person who sat down with me, a kid who didn't know anything about cards, and got me started on my journey. So one of the things that she did is she actually helped me do guided visualizations into the cards, which is now something that I recommend to folks who are interested in even if you're not interested in working with tarot as like a divinatory art, but you're just interested in the imagery or you are interested in world building in some form, the cards can be a great prompt for that. So she did a guided visualization for me with a number of the cards where I basically stepped through the frame and into the picture and interacted. For anybody who's just joining us right now, my name is Madame Onça, and I am a tarot artist and a co-author of the World Spirit Tarot. And yes, this is actually a serious class on tarot, but by serious, I mean that I am prone to say and do anything in the course of sharing the knowledge that I have with you. Just ask these people. So we had just finished doing the death card, and we have come to the temperance card. So my teacher would do these guided visualizations, and I would sort of step into the frame. And as a person interested in tarot, I would, observe what was going on in the card and the imagery, and that would help me to understand more about what each card has to say. But secretly in my second thoughts, I also had a sort of a secret spy cam going on outside the intuitive part of my brain that was also just taking in information, because I knew I was going to have to come back into my daily consciousness as an artist and actually try to find a way to visually reproduce the truths that I was experiencing inside the meditation. So it was very much like being a spy, because I was there authentically interacting with the sort of the kernel of what each card was about. And then I was also going, ooh, look at those sandals. I wonder if I can carve those when I'm block printing. So my experience of the Temperance Angel, which is often portrayed as sort of a more classic angel, like the robed figure with the big, very androgynous with the big blonde hair and so forth. My experience of that angel is that the Temperance Angel is an enormous entity, which is why when I went to draw it more than fills the frame. I wanted that feeling of it sort of being crowded into the space, as if you yourself may be this tall, but it's really having to get down to your level in order to share its meaning. So beyond the message of temperance, like, girl, try to find a livable mix in your life, the temperance card can be quite challenging in that it's not only asking you, relative to your question, to maybe dial it back a little bit. Maybe don't eat everything or fight with everyone or drink everything or work yourself to death. Like, it is a card that suggests temperance in that sense. But it also can be a card of compromise. It says, relative to the question that you've put forth in your reading, how far can you walk back without feeling compromised? If this is about trying to make a workable relationship with an employer or a housemate or a child, here's where you've stated your boundaries are, here's where they've stated their boundaries. In order to meet in the middle, are they going to have to come all this way, or are you able to move towards each other? And the temperance card is asking you to bit by bit try to find a livable blend, which may mean giving something up, or it may mean reconsidering the other person's perspective. Let's see here. Is there a tarot deck with Vanna White and Pat Sajak? Oh, there've gotta be. Absolutely. Just Some Guy from Tennessee. There's a very charming deck that I don't actually have, called the Pomo deck, which is the postmodern deck. And instead of the traditional suits of wands, swords, cups, and pentacles, it is guns, bottles, cash, and TVs, I think. If that one doesn't have Vanna White and Pat Sajak in it, I don't know what they were even doing with their time. And then How I Natural 21. Okay, how long? Yes, oh, absolutely. So Just Some Guy from Tennessee. Earlier in our live stream today, when you were saying, like, I just sort of keep an open document to make notes about how I'm going to realize with my 3D printer some of these ideas, I actually had the same thought. That was me in that meditative realm, trying to record information and bring it back in a way that was authentic and accessible. Because in your case, you're taking storytelling as sort of in the abstract and cosplay, and figuring out how to take those elements of storytelling and acting and cosplay and turn it into a material object that is useful and furthers the narrative, right? In that way, furthers the understanding. And likewise for me, here I was interacting with these archetypes and trying to figure out how to take a personal, transformative Gnostic experience and turn it into a two-dimensional, literally black and white. I had to take those experiences and turn them into a black and white representation that somehow would do the same work. So that allows me to mention that my experience of the archetype of the temperance angel was not a multicolored entity. It was like a big statue, like its feet were like this big. It had these giant, perfect. It was like standing next to one of those Grecian colossi, like giant feet, and monochromatic. It's like it had this enormous stillness in this archetype that was almost like marble or gray, but the vitality in it was enormous, even though it looked monochromatic. So coming back, stepping back out of that visualization into the world of making something as an artist, if I made this like a white blocky statue of an angel, you, the viewer, would have no way of understanding how vibrantly alive it was. And so I had to make a choice to add the iridescent quality that it felt like, even though it's not what I saw, if that makes sense. So there's some insight into the artistic process that I hope is useful. That's kind of the point of this whole show, is an opportunity to understand how these things get made. So the temperance angel asks you, how much are you willing to work to make this work? Now we come to the devil card. And I think we'll probably get through both the devil and the tower today. So the devil card is another one that tends to carry a lot of cultural baggage. Also tends to make it into the movies. Here's my devil card. Boop. Devil cards. This card was definitely designed to be a little bit in your face. Devil cards, traditionally, we see as sort of like a plump version of the Baphomet. He's intended to be sort of uncomfortably goaty and big and round, and he's sort of lording it over these people who are chained to the plinth that he's standing on. So everything about it is he's sort of dominating in this horrific, like it is a horror based image. And the people that are typically, it's actually supposed to be Adam and Eve historically that are chained to the thing. It is a parody of the Lover's card, you will find if you go look at a Rider-Waite deck, where Adam and Eve are, still living their best life, I guess. Although the devil card actually looks like it's a bit more fun. Most images of the devil card are sort of awful, like the people look miserable and the devil is very unappealing. This makes no sense to me as an artist. When the devil card comes up in a reading, it suggests, once again, we come to this notion of life out of balance. It suggests addiction, obsession, denial, and what we call in our house too much Christmas. Like, Christmas is fun, but if we all ate like it was Christmas all the time and just lived on, eggnog and rum and pie and candy from our stockings, it would stop being fun eventually, right? Because our bodies can only take so much of that kind of revelry. So the devil card suggests life out of balance. Hilariously, the only times I've ever done readings for people in 20 years where they've gone, that not me. I have no idea what this reading about. This cards have nothing to do with me. And also tarot is stupid and you don't know anything. That's when they got the devil card, which is the card of denial. And it totally called them on their shit and they were very uncomfortable. And all you could say to that is, sorry. Oh, you're right. It surely must be me. It's not that you're in denial at all. Comedy gold, I tell you. So the thing about the devil card is in those images, they always made him look like the entity of the devil looked very unappealing, like nothing you would run towards. And it made sense to me as a kid who came of age in the Interview with a Vampire and Rice novels. Nobody says, I'd like to wake up today and ruin my life by cultivating some sort of, addictive, obsessive, or self-destructive behavior. Typically, those things come on over time, right? Like we first one's free. You grow into it. You get too much validation for whatever it is you did, and it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a snowball, and then it becomes destructive. So that was my thinking anyway. And that is how I wanted to make my devil much more of a, I'm a secret fan of the rather trashy TV show Lucifer. It's more like that kind of so debonair. It's so easy to get roped in. You start hanging around his nightclub, and the next thing you know, now your life might be a hot mess. And all of these people are surrounded by all of the sort of, there's food and drugs and weapons and money and, sexuality and, bondage is implied. Like everything about it is maybe any of these things could be your idea of a good time, but too much of them could be bad for you. Let's see what the comments say. That huge statue towering over you, look up and wonder. Is that a banana? Yes, because we need the banana met. It's the Baphomet that smothers you with potassium. Good one. So the devil card, I wanted to make mine appealing. That was the whole notion of like, how do you get roped into it to begin with? But anyway, when the devil card comes up, it suggests that you are somehow set on a path of self-destruction. Don't do it, man. There's got to be a better way. Find again, it's all about the livable blend. And then the last card we're going to touch on today before maybe I read a few cards for folks is the Tower card. The Tower card is also historically known as the lightning struck tower. And it is the reason that I call these classes tarot talk for the tower times, because there is a sort of a school of witchy thought that suggests that we are seeing the beginning of the tower times. I know that sounds super apocalyptic, but isn't it a little though? The notion of the tower, what the tower speaks to, is a radical change of perspective. It is, you thought you saw things from up on high. You were on top of the tower looking out at the landscape and you thought you knew how things were. Bam, lightning strikes, revelation, information about how things really are, falling to earth and finding out what things are really like. So the analogy between, the sort of, we can use an infinite amount of the earth's resources and it'll be fine, right? Like the folks who first came over from Europe to North America and said, there's so many trees and so many fish and so many birds. We could literally use as many of them as possible all day, every day, and never affect their numbers. Duh. That notion of now we are living with the consequences of those choices. We are having the wool pulled away from our eyes, as it were, that the choices that we all make do affect things, and that systems that people wanted to pretend were fine perhaps are on the brink of collapse, like the healthcare system and so forth. As an artist in America, ask me how I know. So the Tower, when the card comes up, speaks to this notion of now you know what's really going on, and the revelation may be painful. So here we see the person on the top of the tower. They've got a little crown. Boop. They thought they knew what was going on, and now they are illuminated. They're getting the harshest illumination as to the facts as possible, and they will also find out how gravity works. So, yeah, the Tower card suggests that you are confronting radical change, but it's not, how can I put this? Oftentimes when the Tower comes up, it's, maybe everybody knew that your loved one was running around having an affair, but you didn't. Like the revelation is to you. It's not that reality just changed. It's that you are suddenly in touch with the facts. You are able to see the shape that things always were, and that the disruption is more about our preconceptions hitting the wall that is truth. And yes, that's just science. So, lightning struck tower. So, by way of review today, we talked about the Hermit. The Hermit is the card that suggests you need to take some time for yourself and perhaps really dig into some deep personal study, perhaps one-on-one mentorship, and that in turn, you may find yourself needing to offer some guidance to someone else. The Wheel of Fortune, sacred to gamblers and entertainers, as Donna Fortuna, and this is the card that reminds you that which goes up must come down. Sometimes we find ourselves on either end of that cycle. The Justice card, there may be very important differences for you between what is legal and what is ethical, or just lucky you that some kind of legal matter may settle in your favor, finally. The Hangman, you're all hung up, or you're just in the habit of martyring yourself and holding other people accountable for your martyrdom, or you are looking at a long-term project that will involve some sacrifice, but could totally be worth it. The Death card, that which you most feared is here, but it is for the best, because something has to be let go of for something to grow. Rarely a card of actual death, as it says in the traditional books. The Temperance card, Temperance speaks to compromise and trying to find a livable blend in your life. Also, it's a very big angel. And then the last two, we talked about the Devil card, addiction, obsession, denial, workaholism, basically anything that starts out super fun, but too much of turns out to be less fun and destructive, not only to you, but also to those around you. And the Tower card, which is one of the other big ones that makes it into the movies. Dun, dun, dun. The Tower card speaks to you finding out something that you really wish that you had already known about the way that reality is constructed. So there's the Tower card. So that's what we've done today. The next time through, we'll be working through the cards 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Those are the final 6 cards in the major arcana. Again, if you're just joining me, my name is Madame Onça, and I am the artist and co-author of the World of Spirit Tarot, which just came out in the second version of the second edition right here. And now, if anybody would like me to read a card for them, I'm happy to do it for the proverbial shits, giggles, or the tips. And you can see my tipping information here on the screen. Speaking of which, so for those of you that I showed you, I made this poster, this banner for Shakespeare for the Ren Fair earlier with all of his online tipping information. So I sent it to him. I sent him the picture and said, it's done. It was X number of hours, X number of dollars. And he said, how would you like me to pay you? And I was like, oh, I guess I should paint myself a banner with all of my with all my payment information, or you would already know. So note to self, I should make one too. Fortunately, here I'm lucky enough to have it built into my frame. So death card is death to one part and birth to the next part. Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I call it the compost principle. It's the, death is always the medium in which, new things grow. I mean, and of course, as somebody once said to me, any change that wasn't our idea feels like violence, feels like, feels like it's being foisted upon us without our consent. So, sometimes, the end of a situation feels like a tremendous loss, even if intellectually we understand that it's part of the life cycle, because of course the world would still be covered in dinosaurs and there'd be no room for anything else. If we didn't have some sort of cyclic principle of ebbing and flowing. How would you like me to pay you? Well, yes, the compost reference, right, Sally? We who understand that everything rises and falls. All right. So now I'm going to pull cards for somebody. If anybody would like me to read for you, let me know. Look, it's all dark now. I have not actually pulled a lot of cards for myself yet this month because it has been too darn busy. I'd like to point out that with the advent of solstice, we find ourselves halfway through the year. I mean, also just in a calendar sense, like, holy Hannah, half this year's already gone by. I feel like it's this year and the year before it, the parenthetical year of crap. I feel like it's been the longest and slowest, most stressful and boring. That was the longest year ever. And this 6 months has flown by. So much to catch up on. I've been joined by a cat. All right. Anybody out there want me to pull some cards for you? Because otherwise I'm just going to pull some cards for Awesome Town. This is my new deck. I have only read with it just a little bit. So I got to move the mic a little bit out of my face so I have room to shuffle. Can always tell when Paulo has been on the mic first because he is left-handed. So the mic is on the opposite side. 2020 is the year of the Z's. Yeah. Yep. Stressful and boring. I always thought the apocalypse would have a lot more zombies, a lot less fighting over toilet paper. And how is the chicken? They still have a little cold. Like you can tell he's just kind of just puffed up. It looks like an angry bird. Like it's just like a puffy little gray guy and he's kind of got these roomy little eyes. I brought everybody out and put him in the sun for a while today and he perked up for a few minutes and ran around enjoying the sun. And then he just went and found some bushes to settle in like this. I've done a lot of trying to get liquids into chickens in the past with a with a dropper and so forth. And it's kind of a risky business because you're afraid that you're going to uh, you don't want to make them accidentally aspirate whatever you're giving them, and then you're going to give them pneumonia. So I'm really trying to watch this line and see how the little guy, if he makes any kind of recovery on his own tonight. I put some more Nutri-Drench in their water. For those of you keeping up with the chicken saga at home, yes, the puffy burb, my poor little guy. It's one of the little gray Australorps. And we have a weird little orphan chicken that we have rolled into our mix who's practically feral and somewhat undernourished as well. So it was nice to see him having fun today. He had his very first dust bath. Happy burb. Okay. Well, I'm just going to pull some cards and see what we see. And there's any number of ways that you can lay cards out. When I teach workshops, we really talk about more elaborate spreads. And by that, I mean positional placement. So when you put this card down, you're saying, this represents the influences that have bothered you in the last 6 months. This represents the resolution of your situation. This represents your daddy issues, whatever. Like the cards are positional. But I tend to just generally read without that, unless I'm dealing with some very specific issues or time frames. Right now, it's just nice to be touching these fancy new cards. So I typically shuffle, holding the intention in my mind. If you're an excellent shuffler, you can get wild and crazy at it. Even after all these years, I'm not a fancy shuffler. Then I divide it 3 times with my non-dominant hand. Why? Tradition. There are some traditions that even I like to honor. Hey, Tiddles. Now, I'm just going to pull a few cards. I usually, again, there's no correct way to pull cards, but I tend to rub my hands together, get a little sensitivity in them, perhaps, and then with the hand that I don't write with, I usually pull my cards. Hilariously, there's a cat rubbing my other hand right now. Oh, their cards are a little quiet right now. How about you? There's a cat stomping your miniatures. He's knocking over mammoths left and right. All right, let's see what we got. Sometimes it's really clear, like which cards I need to pick up. That's actually easier for me to read for other people. Huh. So the cards that we haven't talked about yet on this show are the people cards. They are, the king of this, the queen of that, and so forth. I find them the most challenging to read and to apply. I was asking about an upcoming trip that we have. We're supposed to have a busy summer of traveling again, which is our usual. But of course, last year, it was the year of Z's, as somebody said. So I asked if if traveling would happen, and if so, how it would go. So interestingly, I have 2 really great cards and 1 kind of shitty card. The cats have a little Godzilla in them. Yes, for sure. Wouldn't you like to stomp a mammoth if you were a giant cat? So the cards I got the Sage of Pentacles, which is like the king of the realm of practical stuff. I got the Seeker of Cups, which is like the knight of the realm of emotional stuff. And then I got the 5 of Swords, which is really kind of a disappointment and frustration in the realm of decision making. So with just if you're pulling just 3 cards, for anybody who's trying to learn to pull cards, just 3 cards is like sort of a snapshot way. If I pull a whole lot more cards, then you have more time to go, oh, I see there's a lot of, you got 3 different cards that were threes, you got a whole bunch of pentacles. You start to look for themes, the same as, in, critiquing art and so forth. You sort of look for themes. So in this case, what I have is a little bit of everything. And so I'm going to look at that and say, it looks to me like is travel likely to happen, and how's it likely to go? Like it's going to be fine, because that Sage of Pentacles is super satisfied. This is a very happy, very comfortable. Now, to be fair, he doesn't move around a lot in general. He's usually pretty happy sitting in his lair with his happy fat little pig. But it does suggest being, stable, abundantly resourced, physically safe. So I'm going to say that would lend itself, to the leisure to travel, at least, and also to pursue work, because for us, money is on the road. The Seeker of Cups. This tends to be a card that is more about like the love of adventure and, frankly, like romance, chivalry, and so forth. So this card suggests to me, that there is fun adventure to be had. So that suggests being able to hit the road a little bit. And this 5 of Swords says, whatever it is you thought you were going to do, all your well-laid plans are probably boned. Because 5s are conflict and chaos. They're particularly just like take the knowns and throw them into chaos. And, broken swords, I'm going to assume every one of those is a carefully laid itinerary with us trying to scramble around and figure out how to plan in a world where we're still not sure if we're all vaccinated against the right variant. And, there's just so many unknowns, so many things that even with the best laid plans, we can't get ahead of. So it looks to me like some adventures are certain, but also some logistical aggravation is also probable. That's my sort of quick read of those cards. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that that brings us to an hour, and my computer is actually down to like 8%. So we may decide to close that up for the night. I want to thank everybody so much for being here. I anticipate being here with you next week to get through the other major cards, and I hope that, Sally, you have your deck by then. And so I can answer some specific questions for you about it. If anybody else needs decks, I just got a whole bunch of them in, and I was able to drop the price because I had priced, when I had just a few left, I had priced them exorbitantly to keep people from buying them, to be honest, because I didn't know how long I would be out of merch. So now that we have a whole new batch with this beautiful book, they are back down to a much more reasonable price, I'm happy to say. So if you need one, I've got one. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing everybody. What do we have next? We have Shakespeare sonnets tomorrow, probably. And then there's horror gaming. And then I know there's some kind of antics on Sunday. And then the Glamour Hobo is taking the month off. So she will not be on Monday nights, but I can tell you from experience, she's being very glamorous and hobosome right now. And I will be back on Wednesday after the Tuesday game. Yeah. So Sonnets was today. Oh, see, I don't even know what's happening. I don't even know. Where am I? Timey-wimey? All I can tell you then is that I plan to be back here to do my thing with y'all and get us through these major cards next week, so long as there's not more zombie apocalypse problems. Thank you all so much. Oh, I get to run my closing credits. Right. I have that. We're official. We're bona fide. Take care and see everybody soon.